What do you make of this 4B movement? The women that are shaving their heads, the women that are, quote, withholding sex, the women that are threatening to divorce their husbands and stockpiling abortion pills.
They're psychotic, frankly, but they're not real women in that way, in my mind, I guess. They're not desirable women. I guess I'm going to try to speak for most red-blooded American men like yourself. At the end of the day, I do think, and I'm not trying to be mean or insensitive, but I do think the Trump derangement syndrome has just gone off the cliff here. And there is something wrong upstairs, in my mind, for so many of these women who are reacting that way.
That was Steele, a former host over at ESPN who is now trying her hand at political commentary. So far, it's not really going well, but I guess that depends on who you ask. In a recent appearance on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News, Steele said that women who are withholding dating, sex, marriage, and children from the men in their lives who are Trump supporters are not only psychotic, but they are undesirable and not real women. But if they're undesirable, then who cares? The men won't want them anyway, and their crusade will be a bust, right? We'll talk about the 4B movement that Hannity brought up, but let's hear the rest of what Steele had to say.
The scary thing is that I think a lot of them are smart, educated women who are choosing to believe these things. And that's why the Democrats have pushed it for so long, though, because it has proven to work. This is the first time, though, to the shock and dismay of the left, that it hasn't worked. And I look at some of the demographics from this past election, which is 3 weeks ago yesterday, hard to believe. I mean, 18 to 24-year-old women. I mean, didn't Trump win that demographic? So really, people have begun, sane women have begun to do their homework and not just go for the low-hanging fruit that the left throws out there at them.
Okay, so the 4B movement started in South Korea and it's picking up steam in various places around the world, including the US. As I mentioned, women are withholding dating, sex, marriage, and children from men who support Trump or are otherwise misogynistic. And why shouldn't they be withholding these things from men who don't respect them anyway? Why would anyone, male or female, hang out with someone who doesn't respect them or think they have rights to things like their own bodies or healthcare or an independent income? A lot of women stopped dating Trump supporters long before there was a term for it, before there was a movement for them to be a part of. And if Trump supporters think these women aren't real women or aren't desirable, then I don't know why they care. These aren't the women they're looking for. Of course, it's all very Lessa strata, and those women were actually successful in getting what they wanted by withholding sex from the men in their lives, so maybe that's what these Trumper men are actually afraid of. And they're already mad about women not wanting to date them. There was a huge uproar from conservative men when surveys found that men who identified as conservatives or Trump supporters weren't as successful in the dating field.
This list is crazy, and I want to fixate on the third spot there, the Joe Rogan podcast. Like millions of people around the world, I train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night. Now, this probably doesn't mean anything to you, but for millions of people, I mean, Joe Rogan is the most listened to person, by my calculations, in the world. He has 3.5-hour-long podcasts. I recommend listening to them on 3.5 speed.
To cope, some men have just decided to hide their political leanings from the women they're dating instead of being upfront about any of it. In other words, they thought lying about these women, by omission maybe, about their fundamental beliefs about women and insulting the women by not allowing them to make informed decisions for themselves would endear these same women to them. And that's why they had to move over to their own conservative dating app. They needed a safe space to be away from these mean and undesirable women.
I just wanted to let John know that I got my sweatshirt from his dating website that says "Dump Your Liberal Boyfriend," and I'm going to be wearing it. And for all the single girls out there, I'm going to be wearing that and encouraging them to get on your website and find themselves a nice conservative man, because conservative men are more successful, classier. They pick up a bill, they open a door. So girls, dump your liberal boyfriend now.
And John will definitely be having you back on very soon to talk about the right stuff. Very curious about how that's doing.
I will level with y'all. There is a certain level of imposter syndrome that comes with doing a job like this. It's similar to working in any kind of creative field. On one hand, you have to acknowledge that you're not ever going to be at the level you would like to be. But on the other hand, you have to understand that you are objectively good enough to make a career out of it. It's a very confusing and constant push-pull. However, a big part of doing jobs like this one, as is the case in many, many industries, especially these days, is getting the exposure you need from someone who has some kind of booking or platforming authority to notice you. Sage Steele, from her time working with ESPN, had that exposure, but she actually left ESPN on not great terms. She outed herself as a female misogynist on the sports network, making controversial comments about female sports reporters. She also spoke disparagingly about vaccine mandates, and she questioned how Black Barack Obama really is. She was ultimately removed from the network after her comments sparked backlash from the audience. She apologized for making the comments, but then she sued and settled with ESPN over their alleged violation of her First Amendment rights. Now she's tapped into the conservative network, rebranded herself, and landed herself a spot on Fox News. And good for her, she put in the work and she ended up somewhere that is now more in line with her own personal ideals and values. And we all know that Fox News loves a token. Fox News is, for right-wing media, the pinnacle of it. If I was an ambitious right-wing political pundit, if I got a spot on Fox News, I would probably be very happy about it. But Sage Steele has her work cut out for her. She's back on television and she has to make a new name for herself, throwing herself into a different beat than the one that she's built her career off of. Maybe she was chasing a viral moment to help kickstart her new career. And what better way to go viral than to insult your own demographic? It's so edgy, right? I mean, I'm talking about it, aren't I? But if her past comments on ESPN are any indicator, this is who she is, and these are the things she believes. And we over here on the left can act incredulous about all of it, but the truth of the matter is that there are plenty of conservative women who believe in things like traditional gender roles, for example. I personally don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If it works for you and your family, then fine. But choosing to live that way and choosing to raise your family that way is still a choice that you get to make. And that is no different from what the women partaking in the 4B movement are doing for themselves. All right? That's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.